A crocodile explodes from murky water with bone-crushing jaws and spins its prey into a death roll. But why? A leopard plummets from the canopy in a perfectly timed aerial ambush. But how does it calculate the strike? A Gaboon Viper strikes with fangs longer than your finger, pumping in a cocktail of tissue-destroying venom. But what actually happens when those fangs sink in? 3 of nature's most lethal ambush predators, 3 deadly strategies. Stick around to find out the brutal science behind the kill.
So, on a scale of 1 to completely screwed, how screwed do you think this springbok is? But just 3 feet away, hidden in the murky water, is 1,000 pounds of prehistoric rage. Those eyes and nostrils barely visible above the water? That's a Nile crocodile, with a bite force capable of crushing a bowling ball. And that springbok? It has no clue what's coming. A Nile crocodile is basically what you'd get if a submarine and a bear trap had a baby, and that baby was really angry about being born. These freaking things can grow up to 20 feet long and can weigh up to 1,600 pounds. That's roughly the weight of a smart car, except this smart car has 64 teeth and poor impulse control. Now, the first thing you need to understand about ambush hunting is that it's all about energy economics. See, chasing prey burns calories. Crocodiles, they're basically solar-powered murder logs. Cold-blooded, which means they can't waste energy on cardio like some kind of gym bro gazelle. So, instead, they wait. And wait. And wait some more. They can stay perfectly still for hours. Looks boring. And you know what? It is boring. But it's also terrifyingly efficient. Now here's where the physics get spicy. When a crocodile decides it's go time, it uses what the grant-chasing nerds out there call ballistic propulsion. Basically, it's like a spring-loaded mechanism, except the spring is made of muscle and the mechanism is targeted at making you dead. The crocodile's tail, which is basically half his body length and pure muscle, acts like a biological rocket booster. One thrust from that tail can accelerate the croc from 0 to, oh my god, why me? In less than a second. The entire explosive lunge, from motionless to jaws around your leg, happens in about 1/3 of a second. That's 300 milliseconds, and that's faster than you can blink. Literally. All this means, simply put, is by the time your brain registers, oh, that's a crocodile, you're already lunch. Oh man, and that bite. The Nile crocodile has a bite force of approximately 5,000 pounds per square inch. That's 22,000 newtons if you're a fancy pocket protector brigade member. And to put that in perspective, that's about the same force as having a mid-sized sedan sitting on your thumb, except it's not spread out over your whole thumb. It's concentrated on those cone-shaped teeth. Now, the nerdlingers who study this stuff, biomechanists, or something like that, oh screw it, let's go with nerdlingers, they figured out that the crocodile skull is basically a biological vice grip. The jaw-closing muscles are enormous, and they take up most of the back of the skull. But here's the hilarious part. Those jaw-opening muscles? Pathetic. Absolutely weak sauce. You could literally hold a crocodile's mouth shut with a rubber band, or your hands if you're feeling confident or a bit drunk. The physics here is all about leverage and mechanical advantage. See, when the jaw closes, all those massive muscles pull on a relatively short lever arm. But when it opens, long lever arm, tiny muscles. It's like trying to lift a car with a really long crowbar versus a really short one, except backwards, and toothy, and hangry. Once those jaws clamp down, they engage in what scientists call the death roll, which is exactly what it sounds like, except somehow worse than you're imagining. And we can only imagine because ain't no one coming back from that to give us the deets. The croc grabs on, then rotates its entire body along its long axis, using rotational inertia, basically spinning like a demonic barrel to tear chunks off prey that are too big to swallow whole because crocs can't chew. The rotational force can hit 1,000 feet-pounds of torque. So, for example, the most powerful impact wrenches, the ones mechanics use to remove those truck lug nuts from big trucks, they max out around 1,100 pound-feet. So, the croc is basically a demonic power tool with teeth. It's less like a hunting technique and more like being attacked by a very focused tornado that also has teeth. So, to recap, the Nile crocodile is a patient, cold-blooded ambush hunter that can accelerate like a missile, bite like a hydraulic press, and spin like a Vitamix from hell. It's like Mother Nature really said, you know what? Let's make nightmares real. Now let's talk about leopards, which are basically what happens when you give a house cat a gym membership, steroids, has anger management issues, and the ability to drag things twice their body weight up a tree. Leopards are the ninjas of the big cat world. While lions are out there doing their whole pride kumbaya thing, like some furry kind of motorcycle gang, and cheetahs are speed running the savannah, leopards are up in trees, alone, judging everyone, chilling until they're not. And it's that part that you don't want to witness firsthand. The average leopard weighs between 1 and 200 pounds, depending on whether we're talking about a female or a big chunky male. But don't let that fool you. Pound for pound, these things are stupidly strong. And here's a fun fact. Leopards can haul prey weighing up to 200 pounds up a vertical tree. That's like you dragging your refrigerator up a rope while it's still plugged in and full of last week's leftovers. But we're here to talk about the physics of the ambush hunt. And boy howdy, it is a beautiful thing in a nature is terrifying kind of way. See, leopards are what you call stalk and pounce predators. They use cover, trees, rocks, tall grass, and that one suspiciously leopard-shaped bush to get within striking distance, usually about 10 to 30 feet from their target. And then they wait for the perfect moment, the moment when their prey is distracted, looking the wrong way, contemplating its life choices, pooping, whatever. And that's when the leopard converts potential energy into kinetic energy in the most aggressive way possible. When a leopard pounces, it's basically doing physics homework, except the homework is murder. They can accelerate from a standstill to 60 kilometers per hour, 35 for American friends, in just a few strides. That's about 16 meters per second. The acceleration forces involved can reach up to 3 times the force of gravity, what science nerds call 3Gs, which are about what fighter pilot Gs are. That means during that pounce, the leopard's muscles are generating force equivalent to 3 times its body weight. Imagine bench pressing 3 of yourself while running, while also aiming for something that's trying really hard not to die. Now, here's where it gets extra spicy, the aerial phase. When a leopard attacks from a tree or elevated position, it's doing what physicists call projectile motion. It's literally turning itself into a guided missile with claws and an appetite. Gravity accelerates the leopard downward at 9.8 meters per second squared. Combined with the horizontal velocity from the leap, you get a trajectory that would make a ballistics expert weep with joy. Or terror. Probably both. See, the moment the leopard leaves the branch, gravity takes over. And gravity doesn't care if you're a falling apple or an angry cat. It pulls everything down at the same speed, 9.8 meters per second squared, which sounds all sciencey, but what it means is this. Every single second the leopard is in the air, it's falling faster and faster. But here's the cool part. The leopard isn't just falling straight down like a sack of potatoes. It's also moving forward from the force of its jump. So you've got this forward speed, let's say 20 miles an hour, combining with the downward speed from gravity. And all of this, the gravity, the forward motion, the perfect arc, it's all calculated in the leopard's brain in a split second. Go calculator, no protractor, just pure instinct and muscle memory. Nature's version of a geometry homework problem, except if you get the answer wrong, you go hungry. The impact force when the leopard hits its prey can exceed 1,500 newtons. That's like getting hit by a 150-pound sack of angry potatoes traveling at 20 miles an hour, except that the potatoes also have claws, and they're personally offended by your continued existence, which it intends to end. But wait, there's more. Because leopards don't just rely on impact force. Oh no, they've got retractable claws that are basically biological grappling hooks. When those claws extend, and they can extend up to an inch, they dig into prey with pressure concentrated on incredibly small surface areas. We're talking pressures of over 10,000 pounds per square inch at each claw tip. That's more pressure than a hypodermic needle. The science dorks call this penetrative purchase, which sounds all like something you'd order on Amazon after too much wine, but actually means stabbing things to maintain their grip while they try to escape. And for you science nerds out there, here's some candy for you. And here's the kicker. Leopards usually go for a throat bite, not the jugular like you see in movies. That's messy and takes forever. No, they go for the trachea, the windpipe. A leopard's canine teeth are about 2 inches long and designed like steak knives, sharp and slightly curved. The bite force of a leopard is around 300 to 310 pounds per square inch. That doesn't sound like much compared to the crocodile from earlier, but remember, it's concentrated on 4 tooth points punching through your windpipe. The leopard clamps down and just waits. Applies steady pressure, cuts off the airflow. It's less like being bitten and more like being strangled by someone with really pointy fingers. Yeah, and who knows, maybe it's enjoying your terror. Sick. So yeah, leopards. They're patient, they understand gravitational potential energy better than most college school students, and they'll turn themselves into a furry guided missile to ruin your day. Alright, now let's talk about the Gaboon Viper. Forget ninjas. This snake perfected the art of disappearing by looking exactly like a pile of leaves and then not moving. For days. And then you came along. The Gaboon Viper is a thick boy. We're talking about snakes that can weigh up to 25 pounds and grow to over 6 feet long. But here's the thing. They're not long and skinny like other snakes. They're long and fat. Like really fat. These things look like a scaly pool floaty thing. They live in the rainforests and savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, where they spend most of their time doing absolutely nothing. And I do mean nothing. You think the croc and leopard do nothing? This thing is a gold medalist. They sit in one spot for weeks, looking like a pile of leaves waiting for something edible to wander by. And here's the thing about Gaboon Vipers that make them special. They have the longest fangs of any venomous snake, up to 2 inches long. That's almost as long as your thumb. Now imagine your thumb, except it's hollow, filled with murder juice, and attached to a spring-loaded face. The strike of a Gaboon Viper is where physics goes from interesting to absolutely unhinged. When a Gaboon Viper strikes, it happens in roughly 200 milliseconds. That's 0.2 seconds. That's faster than you can blink. Literally, the acceleration involved is absurd. During that strike, the Viper's head can accelerate at rates exceeding 10 Gs. Fighter pilots black out at around 9 Gs. The Gaboon Viper is out here pulling fighter jet maneuvers with its face. The science nerds who study this, they're called herpetologists, which also sounds to me like they're studying herpes, but no, it's reptiles. Well, anyway, these folks figured out that the strike velocity can reach up to 8 meters per second. That's about 30 kilometers per hour. The kinetic energy in that strike comes from the Viper's specialized musculature. They've got what researchers call supercontracting muscle fibers along their spine and ribs. When they contract, it's like releasing a compressed spring. Potential energy stored in coiled muscle converts to kinetic energy in the strike. The formula is actually quite simple. Kinetic energy equals 0.5 times mass times velocity squared. And no, I don't know what that means exactly, but I do know what that means in simple terms, and that is, you're dead, loser. And then there's the bite itself. When those 2-inch fangs penetrate, they're moving fast enough and are sharp enough that they can punch through leather. The pressure at the fang tip exceeds 30,000 pounds per square inch. That's roughly the same pressure as those industrial water cutters that can slice through concrete and steel. The Gaboon Viper is basically deploying construction equipment at you. Tiny, venomous construction equipment that moves faster than you can blink. Once those fangs sink in, venom flows through the hollow channels at a rate of about 2 milliliters per second, and Gaboon Vipers have a lot of venom. Up to 600 milligrams in a single bite. That's enough to kill up to 3,000 adult humans, though they usually don't inject it all. They save it up for later, just in case there's more killing to be done. Okay, fine. Let's talk about what this venom actually does, because it's genuinely horrifying. Gaboon Viper venom is like a chemical weapon designed by committee. It's got multiple components that all do different terrible things all at once. First, there are the hemorrhagens. 2 proteins that basically unzip your blood vessel from the inside. They separate the cells that line your capillaries, causing blood to leak out into places blood should definitely not be leaking out of. It's less like bleeding and more like your circulatory system deciding to redecorate your tissue spaces with blood. Then there's a cardiotoxin component, which messes with your heart's ability to contract properly. It screws with calcium channels in heart muscle cells, which means your heart starts beating irregularly, and then just weaker and weaker and weaker, and uh-oh. And if that wasn't enough, the venom also contains vasodilators, chemicals that force your blood vessels to relax and widen. So now you've got leaky blood vessels that are also too relaxed to maintain blood pressure. Your blood pressure just crashes. There are the metalloproteinases in there, enzymes that break down the structural proteins in your basement membranes. You know, the scaffolding that holds your blood vessels together. So the venom is actively demolishing the architecture of your circulatory system while simultaneously making everything leak and lowering your blood pressure. Sounds like fun. It's basically a multi-tool of biological destruction. Wait, what are you doing there? Don't you know he'll turn your innards to jello? Whatever. Except instead of a screwdriver and a bottle opener, it's got destroy blood vessels, stop heart, cause systemic hemorrhage. The Gaboon Viper then just sits there, waits for the venom to do its thing, doesn't even need to hold on, just tags you with the fangs and lets chemistry handle the rest. So to summarize, the Gaboon Viper is a patient, camouflaged ambush hunter that can strike with acceleration forces that would make a fighter pilot pass out, delivering pressure that exceeds surgical instruments, and then destroys your insides all in less time than it takes you to realize you should probably run. I think evolution really looked at snakes and said, you know what this needs? More nightmare fuel. So there you have it. 3 ambush predators, 3 completely different approaches, and enough physics to make your high school science teacher finally proud of you. The Nile Crocodile, hydraulic crushing power and rotational death mechanics. The Leopard, gravitational potential energy weaponized with claws and fangs. And the Gaboon Viper, spring-loaded acceleration and hypodermic nightmare delivery. All of them patient, all of them precise, all of them turning the laws of physics into lethal art forms. Let me know in the comments which of these ambush hunters freaked you out the most, and if you learned something today, or if you're just here for the existential dread. I'll see you next time for more nature facts that'll make you glad you're at the top of the food chain, unless you run into one of those guys, in which case you're dead meat bag. And while you're here, why not check out this video on those bastardly yellow jackets, right up there.